talking with friends, Paul Eddy, in my small group, and processing this and spending time with God, I've really come to see that it's not just about the pain or primarily about the pain. It's about the meaning of the pain. There's a meaning that is here. And something about the meaning of this pain is revealing darkened corridors in my inner being that have not yet received light. And see, this isn't the first time something like this has happened. You know, if you've been around like the time, I share this stuff regularly, but I really thought I was pretty much done, pretty much healed, integrated. And just when you think that, there's another layer. The rabbit hole goes a little deeper. Here's the background to what has been revealed to me, especially in the last couple of weeks. It has to do with, and some of this I've shared little pieces of it before, but I've never brought it together like this. It has to do with things that happened to me in Catholic school in 2nd and 3rd grade when I was 7 and 8 years old. Those are my foggiest years. I remember my teachers up to 2nd grade, and I remember my teachers after 3rd grade, but I can't even get the faces of my teachers in 2nd and 3rd grade. And it's all quite foggy. I had a severe stuttering problem at this time in my life. I had a lot of behavioral problems. I'm sure I've since been diagnosed with ADHD, and I had that back then, so I couldn't concentrate on anything. So I had behavioral problems. I was behind in all the subjects because I wasn't paying attention to anything. I was remedial everything. Plus I had speech therapy. Plus I was always acting out. So I really got tagged as sort of the behavioral problem dumb kid who doesn't know how to talk. I landed on a strategy. We all need a strategy to survive, some way of giving ourselves worth. And one of 3 strategies that I can see looking back on this, one of 3 strategies that I had was to get life was that I just would become the bad kid. And I'd become the class clown. I would do things that other kids wouldn't do, and that would give me some kind of peer approval. So the teachers developed a strategy for disciplining me when they didn't have to always keep their eyes on me. And so what they would do is give the little goody two-shoe girls in the class, they would have them sit behind me with a family Bible. And they had unquestioned permission to hit me over the head with that Bible if I was ever acting out. It would always happen unexpectedly. I never saw it coming, so there'd be a jolt, and often it would happen without me deserving it. They just would like to have, it was always good for a laugh, and all of a sudden you hear this whap, but I never saw it coming. I don't know how often that happened. I can remember a handful of times, but I don't know how often that happened. I do know that when they hit, sometimes it was very, very hard. There were times where the room would kind of roll back into vision, which I now understand that was because my eyes would roll in the back of my head. It would hit me very hard. I would always have, I see stars afterwards, or sometimes the peripheral vision would be dark. I'd have like the tunnel vision. Sometimes there would be blurriness for a while. But I would always laugh it off because I'm the class clown, and it didn't mean anything. And so I'd always force a smile, even if I was fighting back tears. And I always remember having neck pain. It's a constant thing. But I couldn't tell anybody. It's not like I can go home and tell my parents that I'm being abused at school. No one's going to take the word of a behavioral problem, stuttering, remedial reading kid over the word of nuns and teachers who are doing God's work. It explains why all my life I've had some stiffness in my neck. I've never had good rotation in my neck. It explains why this car wreck jacked my neck up so much, why I'm on my MRI. I've got this arthritis, moderate to severe arthritis throughout the neck, and moderate to severe disc shrinkage throughout my neck, and a bulge, and other sorts of things. Another strategy I had going through this time was we all need to feel special. And I developed a strategy where I tell myself I'm special because I knew a secret that no one else seemed to know, and it's a secret that we die. I was always obsessed with death. I don't know how that happened, but I was just fascinated by death and thought about it a lot. And I felt like I had a secret because no one else seemed to want to talk about it. Everyone else seemed to forget about it. And I had trouble communicating stuff anyways because of the stuttering, but insofar as I tried, no one wanted to talk about this. And so I came to the conclusion at some point that people must just forget that we die. And so I would at times, after being whacked over the head with the Bible, or if I would try to answer a question and I couldn't because I stuttered and the kids would laugh, I would, whenever there was that taunting of the classroom as we're sitting there all with our conformist uniforms, I would say to myself, you all think that I'm stupid, but I know that you're stupid, because I know that we die. And so none of this matters. You don't even know that we're going to die. I do. And in a bizarre way, I felt special for having this secret. I was being defined by the outside in, what was coming into my brain through my body in the physical environment. I was being defined by the outside in and from the bottom up. The enemy is using this to tell my mind conclusions that are not true. I concluded around 7 or 8 years old that I'm alone and that nothing matters. And I'm the only one that knows that nothing matters, which makes me feel more alone. And I remember during this period of time feeling so very alone. Having to go away to the school. I had to take a couple buses and just being alone going to the buses, and then at school always feeling out of place, always feeling alienated, always feeling threatened. And that's why I was a class clown. It was one way I could fit in. It was a little niche I had. What made it, I think, much worse is that home wasn't a safe place either. I wasn't at home. I lived in a family with a mixed marriage that was toxic, and the kids became pawns in this toxic, constantly fighting warfare that was this marriage. My stepmother, looking back on it now, I think she just lived on the verge of a nervous breakdown. Maybe she even had a couple, I don't know. But she would sometimes snap, and when she would snap, and you never knew when she was going to snap, but when she snapped, she would bring about some bizarre and humiliating and very painful forms of punishment. And so as I look back on it, this kid, this little Greg, had no safe place. So the message that I was internalizing was that I'm alone in a meaningless and painfully arbitrary world. It could turn against you at any minute. As I look back on my life, given that conclusion, a lot of things make sense. I can see, when I started reading, when I finally found something that was worth thinking about in 11th grade, I started reading philosophy, I immediately gravitated towards existentialism. I can understand why now. It was just wired for it. Soren Kierkegaard, man, I just had a friend in Soren Kierkegaard. So I had this strategy of being the class clown. I had a strategy of knowing a secret that we died, and therefore it's all meaningless. I had one final strategy of survival, and it was my imagination. I would retreat into this world of imagination, and that was safe, and that was interesting, and that was fun. And I did this for a number of years. I don't know if I think I did this till I was 11, 12 years old, where I would just retreat. It involved a stick and a string, hence the title of this message. And I would find any kind of stick like this. I don't know if you can see this. A Q-tip was sometimes what I had to use if I couldn't find a stick around the house or outside. I'd get a Q-tip. And then I'd find a string of some sort. This is a string from a rug, and often I would have to I'd pull threads out of the rug. And I had to always sneak this because my stepmother was very, very against it. She thought this was abnormal, and I had a number of abnormal behaviors. I didn't know until much later that she actually was trying to get me in to see a shrink, but my father didn't think I needed it. But I would go into this world of imagination for hours, and I would get alone with a stick and string. These are my two best friends. And I would just play in this imaginary world. And it would be like this could be the smokestack of a train, and this would be the smoke out of the train, the smokestack. Or this would be the arms of the train, and this would be the wheel, and it'd be choo-choo-choo-choo like this. Or this could be a gun, and this is the fire coming out of the gun. Or this is somebody hitting somebody, and this is the pop somehow. This would be like on Batman, the pop or whatever. Or this would be a plane, and here's the propeller. Or this could be the wing of the plane, and this could be the wind behind it. And there's a million things, and I would run around the room just kind of hyper while I'm playing this stuff, and I would make all sorts of noises, and I would go for hours, and I had to do it. It was a compulsion. If I was in a situation where I couldn't get my stick and string, and there was a sense of panic, my heart would just flutter. I would just be panicky. I'd find anything, even a bobby pin or a little tiny thread, to go into the bathroom alone and act like I'm going to the bathroom. I had to just get my fix. And I would have to hide doing it, which is one of the reasons why I think it feels kind of scary to put this out there. I would usually go downstairs and hide, because then I could hear my stepmother coming down, so I could stop it in time. She couldn't catch me. I had to hide my rocking my head in bed, or my bouncing my head against the pillow, and a number of other behaviors. It was coping mechanisms for a kid who's being defined from the outside in and from the bottom up. So the revelation that is starting to kind of come up, it seems, right now, is that there's something about this neck pain that's activating all of that. They say that your body remembers. Memories can be stored in your body, and there's something about this neck pain that is bringing me there. It sometimes feels like this world of this second and third grader is invading the world of the 54-year-old. He's breaking in. And I'm like feeling the conclusion that he drew in seventh, or as a 7 and 8-year-old. And I couldn't name that until just the last couple weeks to draw this connection. There's something here, I don't know what it is, but it's breaking through. I just couldn't name it, I couldn't identify it. The adult me knows that I'm not alone, but there apparently is in some corridor in some dark school in my brain a kid who doesn't know that yet. And I know that death isn't the end, but there's this kid in his dark corridor in the recesses of my soul that isn't sure about that. And I know that life isn't meaningless, but there's a part of me locked in there that apparently doesn't yet know that. Is still feeling the alienation of that meaninglessness. And I know as an adult, I don't need to convince anyone that I'm not dumb, but there's somebody deep in there, this little boy in there that still thinks that he needs to do that. Hang on to the secret of death to prove that he's not as dumb as everybody thinks he is. Down there in the corridors of my inner being, there's somebody who's stuck. Corridors of a dark school, corridors of a threatening home. Aspects of my being that are not yet filled with the knowledge of God's will. And he desires to commune with me. So here's what's going on now. As I always do, I just put on beautiful music when I commune with God. And I ask God to search my heart. And I surrender my imagination over to him because I believe that the imagination is the primary connection between the spirit and the soul. The spirit doesn't talk verbally. We can even show that neurologically. I mean, there's parts of our brain that just don't process stuff that way. But he speaks in terms of images and impressions and sensations. And so you surrender your imagination up and ask God as you commune with him, to communicate with you. I commune with God, and out of that communion, God and I together go back. And he holds my spirit like a lamp. And I just invite him to search the corridors of the heart and to look for this kid. We are together doing that. And he and I reveal messages that this little boy received and conclusions that the little boy believed that were not true. And then he lets the true part of me, this spirit, shine on this kid, shine light on this, what is real, and then to bring healing. He partners with the innermost part of me that is healed to bring healing to the rest of me. He's helping me take authority over all aspects of my being, including the past. God doesn't change the past, but he can change the meaning of the past if we let him, and if we'll abide with him and commune with him and surrender ourselves to him. And that's how we get free, and that's how we get healed. What I experience during these times are simply glimpses. It's like a dream sometimes. Glimpses or images or impressions. And some of them are familiar. I remember them. I remember that. Others are not at all familiar. But they're all powerful. And he redeems them. Here's just a few of them, and I'll close with this. A few of the scenes that I'm getting. It's just one way that it can look as you commune with God and explore the corridors of your inner being with the light that you are. At one point, I see a boy in a field. It's me, little Greg. I'm staring at this dead rabbit. And I did that a lot. I would stare at dead animals. And I see this boy, and he's full of wonder, and he's full of all these questions. He's full of questions. But he's got no one to talk to about him. He's alone, and he stutters, and no one seems to be interested in that topic. And then I was just looking at this boy in this field, staring at this dead rabbit, and kind of poking at it, and just full of wonder. I hear a voice, but it's a voice that's deeper than words. It's an impression. It's a communicate kind of voice. And the voice is simply, he is my beloved. He is my beloved. Someone, just before this car accident, gave me a word. met with me to just give me, felt like I had a prophetic word. And the essence of the word was, you are God's beloved. And I took it, and it was a nice word, and it moved me, and it touched me. And then I largely forgot about it. But in the last couple of weeks, it's been a refrain. As I, united with God, have been going to look through the corridors of the inner being, this become kind of a theme. That word has landed. Another image is I see a boy in church, and he's staring at the statue of the Virgin Mary. The Virgin Mary was his imaginary friend in heaven, and it was the only friend he thought he had in heaven. And I'm asking her to save me, because I don't want to go to the hell that I hear about every day. I'm not sure about that place, but I don't want to go there. As I'm looking at this boy's longing, he's just wanting to be held in her arms. There's times where he would be envious of Jesus because he's held so serenely. And part of him that's longing, as I'm staring at the statue of the Virgin Mary, I had to go to Mass every morning, and I just look at her. She's so serene. And the boy's really holding out the possibility of someday being loved like that. And so I see him kneeling in the church and staring with his longing face. And I hear the word. It's deeper than words. He is my beloved. I see a boy at one point sitting in a second grade desk. And he's surrounded by a classroom full of taunting peers in uniform. And as I'm looking at him, I know that he's just been hit. But he's forcing a smile like he doesn't care because he's the clown and everything is laughed at. He's always the clown. But then in this scene, I then suddenly noticed that the one behind him was not one of these girls with a family Bible. It's Jesus. And he's rubbing my neck. And I'm smiling past the pain, but he's wincing. He's absorbing the pain, and I can see that as he's rubbing my neck. And as he's doing that, he whispers to me. He leans forward, and he whispers in the boy's ear, "You are my beloved. You're my beloved." Another time I see the boy holding Jesus' hand, and as they walk down this one dark, threatening hallway of school, and they're alone. There's no other kids around in this scene. I just see a glimpse of this. They're holding hand in hand. And one hand, Jesus got the boy hands. I'm looking at it from behind. And the other hand, he's holding like this lantern, which is, I know, the essence of me, this light. And it's shedding light on this dark corridor. And as they walk down this hall, all of a sudden, the wall on the far side of the corridor vanishes. And now the corridor, the hallway opens up to this magnificent field. And they're heading towards this open field. It just feels so free. And the light just now sheds this dark corridor. And as I approach it, I see that there's all sorts of bunnies hopping around in this field. And the boy and Jesus walk out in the field. And I hear that word again. He is my beloved. And one final image I have is I see this boy hiding alone in the basement of his home, as he did so often. It's one place where he couldn't be caught, walked in on. And he's playing with a Q-tip and a string, and he's jumping around so frantically, and he's lost in his imagination, in his imaginary world, and he's making strange noises. And it looks so bizarre as he's doing this, all by himself. But as I look at this scene, all of a sudden I notice Jesus is jumping along with him, right on the outside of the circle. And Jesus is jumping along with him, and he's waving his hands like this, like he's creating magic with this young boy. He's just creating magic, like this is his creativity flowing through this. He's got this look of delight on his face, his pure delight. He's rejoicing over this young boy, this little boy. And then he says something a little bit different. I hear this word, "He is my stick and string. He is my beloved." You see, on one level you could say this is just my imagination. This is my imagination. And it is my imagination. But see, it's my imagination that's been illuminated by the Spirit of God. His Spirit united with my spirit, which makes my spirit a lamp. And now he's using my spirit as this lamp to go into these corridors, these innermost parts of my being that have not yet fully received the good news. And he's setting the captive free. And he's reframing the things that have happened in the past, and he's bringing redemption to it and healing to it. And I'm being made more whole, and now I'm being filled with the knowledge of God's will. Not just the adult Greg Boyd in the frontal lobe cortex, but the inner beings, the inner corridors of Greg Boyd are being filled with the knowledge of God's will. The light is invading the darkness. God's primary will, you guys, it's not about what we do. It's about you. It's about you. That he wants to commune with you. He wants to fill you and me with the knowledge of his will. His will is that we'd be united in his perfect love. His will is to be with you and to be in you and to flow through you. His will is that you be healed and you be set free and that you be made whole. His will is that you, every part of you, would know that you're profoundly loved and that you've never been alone. You thought you were alone, but you weren't alone. He's always been there. His will is to fill every corridor of your innermost being with his love and to shed light on the darkest spots, every nook and cranny, and to fill it with light and to fill it with love, to fill it with peace, and to fill it with truth. And so I encourage you to have times where you just sit in his presence and commune and just surrender your imagination to him and then let him use your spirit as a lamp to say what is real, what is there. It's a beautiful thing. The beauty he brings, and he brings good out of all of it. It's the most beautiful, beautiful thing in the world to see the Lord in the process of redeeming all of us, every part of us, every nook and cranny, every wound that is there, every scar. Invite him into it and watch the healing that he brings. I just want to leave this with, we're going to put on some music. I want to ask the prayer teams to come up. And if you want to sit for a little bit and just sort of soak, just do what we've been talking about and just sort of let the Lord use your spirit as a lamp and see what comes. You're free to do that. When you want to leave, feel free to leave, but do it quietly. So could I ask the prayer team to come forward? If you would like to pray with folks about something that is there, maybe you've had something like what I've been going through, where there's something that is just invading your adult life and you don't know what it is. It helps to have people to help discern that. And so, Lord, we right now surrender this time to you. Thank you for being a God who floods us with light, a God who fuses your spirit with our innermost spirit to redeem us. Continue that good work that you began. Bring healing, bring light, bring love, bring truth to the darkest, secret places of our hearts as we open ourselves up to you. In Jesus' name.